What's happening again, everybody? The Bearded Prepper here. Today, I wanted to talk to you as a follow-up to the supply chain inconsistencies or issues that I saw and talked about with you in the previous video. I've also noticed a trend, at least in the media, and I normally don't pay a lot of attention to something if I see it in one place, but I'm seeing this everywhere in a lot of news outlets and also in the healthcare system. It's about shortages of drugs. We dealt with this last year, and it's a very real concern of mine, especially since most of our drugs, especially a lot of the generic drugs, which have become predominantly the supply that we have here in America, well, and really around the world, they're manufactured in China and places like that. So if we ever get at odds with them, well, then our supply automatically goes away. That was a big concern. But now I'm seeing a lot of drug shortages, following up from what we saw with over-the-counter drugs, like before we had Tylenol, Advil. A lot of children's medications were out of stock. And now we're seeing things like drugs to treat lead poisoning. It's pretty serious, right? You would want to have that at least accessible if you needed it in the healthcare system. Also, sterile IV fluids, things like they use in open heart surgery or cardiac bypass surgery. It's a pretty critical surgery. You might want to make sure you have a supply of those drugs available to treat people. Beyond that, I'm also seeing things like cancer treatment drugs. And unfortunately, there's validated reports of physicians having to triage, or if you will, ration cancer drugs to people that need it the worst. I read a story, it kind of breaks your heart to see these stories. There was a guy that has been treated for cancer. He was due for his final round of chemo before they declared him, cured. And it came down to the wire and he couldn't get his treatment. So they couldn't say that he was cured. Or this last round of drug was supposedly going to be the round that put him into remission and cured him of his cancer. He couldn't start. It was heartbreaking for him because they didn't have access to the drugs. And they had rationed the drugs out to someone that needed it worse than him. I mean, this is not the same world we have become accustomed to. Not that I'm saying we deserve everything, but we need to proactively plan. We need to be prepared, not just individually, but as a nation. We can't be dependent upon potential future enemies to produce all of our drugs. And I'm encouraging you, if you can, any drugs that you need, stock up on them. Be prepared. That's been a little challenging until now, but now you're seeing some other options come out. I know there's, I think it's called a JASE case, J-A-S-E. Is full of antibiotics and such. That's an option that's out there these days. I haven't personally invested in that, but I know people that have checked it out if you wanted to stock up on antibiotics. But like blood pressure medications, I know from experience that you can transfer your prescriptions for things like that to somewhere like Walmart, and they'll fill your whole year's worth of prescription up front. You can have it on hand. The essential medications that I take, I have a year's worth on hand right now. But more critical things for people that may be diabetic or have some serious issues like that, I have been following some legislation or executive orders that actually looks like it's going to allow people that have chronic medications like that or chronic issues to receive or stockpile, if you will, a limited supply on hand. So if those are things that you're going to need, you need to check into that. And if you can, you need to purchase and stock away medications that you may need if your life depends on it for any medical conditions. Now, I'm not talking about things that aren't going to kill you if you don't have them, but if you have significant blood pressure issues or issues with your blood sugar, things like that, you might want to stock up on that. You might want to talk to your physician or check into the legislation yourself or the executive orders and see if that is in place yet. and go ahead and stockpile on that now, because you don't want to wait until there is a severe shortage. And I can tell you right now, the drug manufacturers, I know this for a fact, they are not required to notify the government, the customers, or anyone else if they know there's going to be a shortage of their meds. And beyond that, if some of these meds are short because the raw materials increase so much in price that the manufacturers were making such a slow profit on the medications, they just said, yeah, we're done. Not going to make any more. And nobody found out until they just weren't available. So they have no requirement other than maybe a moral obligation, but they have no legal requirement to notify anyone that they're going to stop making the medication. So beyond that, I mean, we're talking prescription drugs here, right? The other thing I need you to think about at this point in time is everything else. You know, cold and flu season. You might want to go ahead and purchase some of that over-the-counter stuff now as you can. Same thing with ibuprofen, Tylenol. Something really important, Benadryl, especially if you know someone or someone in your family has allergic reactions or severe allergies. It'd be terrible to need that and not be able to get it or not have any on hand. So I can tell you a couple of things, a couple of tips for you. You can always get obviously generic brands of that, but like your Dollar General store, Dollar Tree, you can get a lot of those medications, you know, for $1. Like, and you know your drug names, like diphenhydramine is Benadryl, but you can go into Dollar General and see that on the shelf for $1 as Sleep Aid, or Walmart and see Sleep Aid. But if you look at the medication in it, it's Benadryl because it makes you sleepy. So, you know, think about your emergency medical supplies beyond just bandages and Band-Aids and things like that. Think about your over-the-counter drugs. As we saw earlier this year and last year, those can go into a shortage at any given time as well. There was a time you couldn't get any Tylenol, especially children's Tylenol. So I encourage you to go ahead and be prepared along those lines too. So if you've got a lot of your basics taken care of now, medical preparations, they can be a little more challenging, but if you have a significant issue like severe allergy or medication that you depend on to live, that's probably going to be just about as important to you as, say, food. You're not going to, you can have 2 years worth of food, but if you have life-sustaining medication that you can't get, that food's not going to do you a whole lot of good. So this is just a new aspect of being prepared that I wanted to make sure I brought out to you guys. And, you know, I'm mentioning it now that we're already starting to see continued drug shortages, and this time in even more critical drugs that can mean the difference between life and death for some people. And, you know, these changes are creeping up on us subtly. It's not like we were just like, bam, all of a sudden you don't have anything, but we're slowly seeing things change around us. You know, it's the supply chain. You're not able to get your food in your stores restocked the way you used to. We're starting to see drug shortages and things of that nature. If that's not causing you to be a little bit alarmed or wake up and say, maybe I need to prepare a little bit, I don't know what it's going to take. I guess when you go to the store and they have the doors locked up and says no food or no supplies, try back next week. But as for me, I'm going to do my best to prepare. I don't know that you can ever fully prepare 100%, but you know what? That's where it comes down to me choosing the wisdom of my Lord and Savior. I encourage you to do the same. I encourage you to do something. Be prepared. God bless. I'm the Bearder Prepper, signing off.